It is Thursday, and welcome. Welcome to the Magick. Anyway, are you lately feeling sluggish, listless? Is your ENOchian vision magic operations feel plugged? Do you have vision block in your ENOchian workings? Well, friend, I have the answer for you. You need a dose of Nalvage. Now, excuse me. This morning I titled this talk something like the table of Nalvage, a laxative, an ENOchian laxative. And I spelled ENOchian with a capital E and a capital N and a capital O and everything else lowercase, because Eno, I don't know if it is anymore, but in Aleister Crowley's day, Eno was a famous British brand name for a laxative. Okay, a dose of Eno. And Crowley brought it up in one of his talks because Eno spelled backwards is one. But anyway, what's got me off on that is the fact that early on, John Dee and Edward Kelly had gone through several lengthy stages or phases in their ENOchian magic operations. And some of them more promising than others. And Dee was just compiling tons and tons of records of their phase of their Tetrarchic phase and their Loagath phase, and before that their Book of Soiga phase, and keeping notes and making contacts and going through periods of great communications and the information that would eventually encourage them to continue. But it seemed like the angels were getting themselves impatient, and Dee and Kelly were getting impatient too because they had lives. And but they had gotten to a point where it was sort of like they got to ENOchian constipation. Okay, they needed a breakthrough. They needed an Eno, and that breakthrough came with the arrival of a spirit called Nalvage. And Nalvage gave them the what we now know is or know as, let's see, a round table. And we're going to talk about this table today. And the Nalvage communication, in and of itself, by itself as a particular magical tool, they didn't do much with it themselves, except what I'm going to share with you today. But it served as a laxative, and in the days and weeks to follow, out came spluttering the entire batch of material that would turn into the the golden talisman, and the golden talisman gave birth to the elemental tablets, what we know as the elemental tablets, and that in turn gave birth to the angelic language and the 30 aethers and the calls of the keys in the angelic tongue. Just it all came just blurting out, okay, after they met Nalvage. And the table of Nalvage, as far as I can determine, is the unexpressed first Enochian call. They said there are 49 calls, but the first one is unexpressed. And I'm sticking my neck out and saying that the table of Nalvage represents that unexpressed first call, but I may be wrong. I'm going to read you something from Enochian Vision Magic, Practical Guide to the Magic of Dr. John D. and Edward Kelly, by me, of course, but with a wonderful foreword by Jason Louv, okay? And I start off with this illustration. I'll hold that up so you can see it a little. I made these little things up for Enochian class. The order and knitting together of the parts in their due and perfect proportion. God, the Holy Ghost, lo, the beginning and end of all things. And that was a quote from the angel Nalvage, April 10th, 1584. The method of science, the aim of religion, was the official motto of the Equinox, the great magical periodical, first published by Aleister Crowley and his colleagues in the early years of the 20th century. This same phrase could also comfortably serve as the watchwords that describe what the art of magic is to me. Conversely, superstition, as the word is commonly understood, has, in my opinion, no place in the arsenal of the modern magician. This, I believe, is especially true concerning the practice of Enochian vision magic. In all my years of magical practice and exploration of this system, I've never encountered a single case of so-called psychic attack, demon possession, headache, hives, or hernia, indeed any ill effects whatsoever resulting from the practice of this particular kind of magic. That being said, strange and unexpected things do occasionally happen to those who practice magic. And while I believe it's bad for one's mental health to ascribe undue importance to these phenomena, it's important that they be dispassionately observed and recorded. So before I discuss the Round Table of Nalvage and its importance to the system of Enochian magic, I feel I must share with you two little stories that might help you understand the level of respect I hold for this particular magical object. 20 years ago, I was teaching a class in Enochian vision magic at our home in Costa Mesa. Now, this 25 years is now probably closer to 35 or 40. This class was different from the Enochian magic classes I had taught previously, for it was the first time we would study and experiment using the Round Table of Nalvage. In preparation for the first class, I decided to make a copy of the tablet out of wax, as I had done with my Sigillum Deameth. A friend had given me two massive black wax candles shaped like giant chessmen, bishops, two black bishops. My plan was to melt these down in a round Christmas cookie tin and carve the squares and the angelic letters of the tablet of Nalvage on cooled on the cooled wax disc. It was a foolish time to be starting an arts project like this because our landlord had just informed us he was bulldozing our house in 2 weeks and building apartments on our lot. Thanks a lot. Yeah, 2 weeks, literally. They said, "Oh, I'm sorry, we just couldn't bear to tell you." Fuck the landlords. Okay. And we were deep in the midst of packing up our things to move. Still, magic is magic and life goes on. I put the 2 black wax bishops in a cookie tin and slid them into the oven. Don't do this at home, kids. I set the heat on the lowest possible warm level and went out to the garage to help watch Constance pack. As you might imagine, we had some very interesting things in our garage, and many of which we hadn't looked at in years. We did more remembering than packing. I didn't forget the black wax bishops in the oven, however, and checked on them regularly. It seemed that they were taking a long time to melt. So I turned the heat up a little. Back out in the garage, we found a stash of psychedelic artwork Constance had painted and drawn in the late 60s when we were hippies living in the woods of southern Oregon. We hadn't seen them in 15 years. What a treat. We lingered over them for probably 10 minutes before I remembered the black wax bishops for the round table of Nalvage in the oven. When I opened the back door, I found the kitchen dark except for a warm glow that, like a spectacular sunset, brightened the dark clouds of smoke that filled the house from ceiling to about 4 feet from the floor. The oven was completely engulfed in flames. I ran to the living room and found our son Jean-Paul lying on the floor watching television, completely oblivious of the black smoke pressing its way toward him from above. Once he and the dog were evacuated, I called Constance, always a level head in times of emergency, and we proceeded to attack the fire. When I opened the flaming oven, I discovered that one of the bishops had slid to the side of the cookie tin, and parts of it had melted down the outside of the rim. The wax had run to the bottom of the oven and dripped down to the pilot light, which then became the eternal flame of Costa Mesa. There was nothing we could do to turn off the oven. Constance eventually had to turn off the gas outside, and with the help of baking soda and wet towels, we got the fire out. I rescued the cookie tin and let it cool in the sink. A couple hours later, the charred ruins of our kitchen, I carved a beautiful wax tablet of Nalvage. I've showed it to you before in class, there it is. Lua lang sach urch. Okay. Yad namaz. Yad Sorgru, Yad Soros. Yad Sorgru. Now, I'm the first to confess that this story has less to do with magic and superstition and more to do with my carelessness and stupidity. I am now forbidden to use the oven for magical crafts. The accident did, however, serve to give me a healthy respect for the round table of Nalvage, or tablet of Nalvage, a respect that in the last year has increased immeasurably, and that brings me to my second magical tale of Nalvage. As we'll soon see, there is much we know about the round table of Nalvage. What we don't know is how it is intended to be used. As I was preparing for the class series that inspired this book, I debated with myself how, or even if, I was going to introduce it into our studies. After all, there was nothing in the source material that hints at what is to be done with it. Late in the afternoon, I was preparing our living room temple for that evening's class. The siglum and ensigns were set neatly on the holy table. The table was covered with its red silk cloth, and the obsidian mirror was set in place. I went to the closet cupboard in my office and took down my black wax round tablet of Nalvage from the topmost shelf. I unzipped its plastic bubble wrap envelope and carefully removed it. I had to admit, after all those years, it still looked magnificently magical. I took it into the living room and set it down on the covered table. I sat down in my comfy chair, and in the warm glow of sunset, which brought to my mind the glow of our blazing kitchen so many years earlier, I meditated on how the round tablet of magic fits into the system. I didn't get much meditating done because the moment I closed my eyes, I fell asleep. I awoke just minutes before people would start arriving for the class. I still didn't know how or if I was going to use the tablet for that night's gathering. I hastily decided that if I didn't have sound reasons for using the tablet, I was going to skip it altogether, at least for that night. I took the tablet off the holy table, wrapped it back up, and carefully put it back at the top shelf of the closet cupboard. I went to my desk to turn off the computer and gathered a few things for class, when I was startled by the sound of something smashing against my guitar, which was mounted upright in its stand near the open closet door. With the guitar strings still ringing, I turned to see that the tablet of Nalvage had flown from its shelf, ricocheted off my guitar, and was resting inches from my feet. As a reasonably rational man, I am of the opinion that there is nothing supernatural in the world, just natural things that have yet to be explained. I'm sure there is nothing I can say to convince the cynic that the tablet hadn't fallen naturally from the shelf because I hadn't put it up properly. I remain, however, extremely impressed at the distance this object had to travel across physical space in order to strike the guitar, find its way to my feet at the very moment I had decided not to discuss it at that evening's class. Needless to say, I changed my mind about the importance of the tablet of Nalvage. And in the few moments remaining before the class members started to arrive, I composed the two-part chorus that incorporates the dynamics created by the letters of the Round Table of Nalvage, a chant that has become the last and perhaps the most important component of the ceremony of preparation. Now let's take a brief look at those dynamics and how the chant, based on the round tablet of Nalvage, can be constructed. And I'm going to sort of give you a teaser. We're going to continue tomorrow because I would like you to kind of understand and be as excited as I am about the simple magic and the incantation, if you will, based on the round table of Nalvage, that seems to serve a wonderful purpose as to opening the psychic doors as a preliminary cleansing before you start to do ENOchian magic per se. Okay, first of all, see those arrows? Look at that top horizontal arrow there moving toward the left. that spells the word urch. Okay. Now, urch is a word in Enochian. Okay. It's an angel name. It's a name of a type of angel. And if you look at the right hand vertical arrow, all the way to the left is pointing down. And that spells another name for a specific kind of angel, Lua. So you could see it's going Lua, and then Lang. Okay, that's an angel type of angel name too. And this one over here goes Saj. Where am I? Saj. And then Urch. So it's going like this. Lua, Lang, Saj, Urch. Lua, Lang, Saj, Urch. It's going like that. Lua, Lang, Saj, Urch. And in those squares right there, and those squares also have Enochian words that mean stuff too. Okay, but when they're spelled in a squiggly way like that, they also spell a message. Yad Mazir. Yad, let's see, Babzna. Yad Sorgru. Yad Seros. That also means something too. And we'll talk about that tomorrow. If you are interested in making your own round table of Nalvage, I'm going to hold this up here long enough for you to make a screen capture of it. And I'll also post something on my Facebook page for you to copy. And we'll talk more about this tomorrow. Until then, continue to be good to yourself. Be good to each other. Do what thou wilt shall be the whole of the law. Love is the law. Love under will.